All right, let's jump straight into this explainer and completely unpack how Spain managed to secure a historic, era-defining victory at the 2026 World Cup. We're going to dive deep into the tactics, the intense new rules, and a quiet, almost invisible revolution happening off the pitch that ultimately decided the biggest tournament in soccer history. So here's the million-dollar question, right? For years, we all knew Spain as the team that would dominate possession, hold the ball for ages, but then completely struggle to actually break through a stubborn, packed defense. If you followed them over the last decade, you know exactly the kind of hair-pulling frustration I'm talking about. So how did they manage to completely reinvent their identity on the pitch to conquer a tournament of this unprecedented scale? Well, before we can even talk about their brilliant tactical evolution, we really need to understand the sheer magnitude of the gauntlet they just ran.
First up, 48 teams. Think about that scale for a second. This was a massive, absolutely historic expansion by FIFA, bringing in nations from 6 different confederations to battle it out across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. We're talking about navigating multiple time zones, wild swings in climate, and a sheer variety of play styles that was just larger than ever before.
And naturally, with more teams comes a lot more football. The tournament featured a grueling total of 104 matches. For any squad to make it all the way to the final and actually lift that trophy, they had to survive a brutal 8-game path. It was an absolute gauntlet that tested physical endurance and squad depth to the absolute limit. And they had to do all of this under the brightest spotlight imaginable. Over 6.8 million fans packed into stadiums to witness the action. That completely smashes the previous attendance records set all the way back in 1994. The pressure cooker environment was quite literally at an all-time high. To add to all that pressure, the pace of play was significantly accelerated. To stamp out time wasting, FIFA rolled out some seriously aggressive new rules. Players had just 10 seconds to get off the pitch during a sub. Referees were doing visual 5-second countdowns for throw-ins and goal kicks. And get this, to stop players from hiding insults, refs were handing out instant red cards for covering your mouth during confrontations. So no more secretly cursing out your opponents. The game was faster and definitely far less forgiving. Part 1. Spain makes history. Amidst all this grand spectacle and that hyper-accelerated pace, the Spanish national team delivered a performance for the ages. Capping off an unbelievable run, they defeated the defending champions, Argentina, 1-0 in extra time. But actually, the most mind-blowing part? They conceded just a single goal during the entire tournament. And with this victory, they became the first nation in history to hold both the men's and women's World Cup titles at the exact same time. It's just total global dominance. And when you look at the individual awards, there's a really fascinating split. France's Kylian Mbappé secured the Golden Boot with a ridiculous all-time record of 10 goals. But it was Spain that completely swept the top performance hardware. Rodri took home the Golden Ball as the best overall player, and Pau Cubarsí snagged the Best Young Player award. It just proved that Spain's system was brilliantly elevating everyone, from their seasoned veterans right down to their emerging youth. Part 2. Evolving beyond tiki-taka. Now, to pull off this historic dominance, manager Luis de la Fuente had to pretty much completely rebuild Spain's tactical DNA. To really appreciate that evolution, we gotta look backwards for a second. For years, Spain's famous tiki-taka, that possession-heavy, constantly passing style, proved highly vulnerable. When opponents packed their defense deep into what we call a low block, Spain just couldn't break through. It led to some genuinely painful early exits. A group stage disaster in 2014, and those agonizing shootout losses to Russia in 2018 and Morocco in 2022. They always had the ball, but they just didn't have the bite. De La Fuente realized they desperately needed to evolve. He kept their world-class midfield control, but he traded that sterile side-to-side horizontal passing for a lethal transition-first verticality. The game plan was simple but devastating. The moment they won the ball back, they attacked immediately. The goal was to catch opponents completely off guard before their defenses could even get set. So, what does this actually look like when they step onto the pitch? On paper, they start in a standard, traditional 4-3-3 formation. But in reality, it's incredibly fluid. It's almost like a giant puzzle shifting in real time. During sustained pressure, the fullbacks push aggressively high and tuck inside, morphing the whole shape into a 3-2-5 or sometimes even a 2-3-5. They were intentionally overloading the final third of the pitch with 5 attacking players all at once. Creating this kind of numerical superiority unlocked some unbelievable attacking potential.
It meant non-traditional attack-minded fullbacks like Pedro Porro could push super high up. He even scored crucial goals against Austria and France doing this. Meanwhile, wingers like Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams were completely unleashed. They injected this blistering, direct, one-on-one pace that absolutely terrified opposing defenders.
But here is the absolute crucial catch. Committing 5 players forward leaves you incredibly exposed to a counterattack, right? It only worked because of a concept called rest defense. Basically, this is the highly calculated, deliberate positioning of the players remaining behind the attack. They aren't just standing around watching the play happen, they're actively setting up a tactical safety net designed to instantly smother the opponent and win the ball back the millisecond possession is lost.
And this is exactly why Rodri was so undeniably vital to this squad. Operating as the single pivot midfielder, he was the mastermind. He dictated the attacking tempo while flawlessly organizing that entire rest defense layer. He was the anchor that allowed the rest of the team to just fly forward without fear, and honestly, it's exactly why he earned that golden ball.
Part 3. The Global Coaching Revolution. But to truly grasp Spain's on-pitch dominance, we actually have to look away from the players for a minute and look deep into the dugouts. This kind of systematic brilliance doesn't just pop up overnight. It stems directly from the philosophy of the legendary Johan Cruyff. He transformed Barcelona and ultimately the entire Spanish approach to developing football. Cruyff firmly believed, and preached, that the coach was the single most important piece of the puzzle.
Cruyff shifted the whole paradigm at academies like Barcelona's La Masia. Instead of looking at a kid and asking, can he run, the entire focus shifted to, can he think? Players weren't just told where to stand anymore, they were rigorously taught why they were standing there. It essentially created this incredibly deep, unified language of football. The Spanish Football Federation took that philosophy and ran with it, turning coaching into a rigorous academic profession. Getting a manager's job wasn't just some perk for famous ex-players anymore. Aspiring managers had to study deeply. We're talking pedagogy, sports psychology, physiology, sports science, and incredibly dense practical methodology. It became much more like earning a university degree or literally a PhD in football. And the results of this massive educational overhaul, well, they're undeniable. Think about your favorite club for a second. The chances are remarkably high that a Spanish manager is calling the shots. Because today, a staggering 20% of all managers across Europe's top 5 leagues, the absolute biggest stages in the world, are Spanish. The system is consistently churning out the sharpest tactical minds in the entire sport. This influence spread globally like wildfire, and it is genuinely awe-inspiring. We saw it when 2 Spanish coaches, Mikel Arteta and Luis Enrique, faced off against each other in the Champions League final. We saw it with Unai Emery winning the Europa League. We even see Spanish methodologies completely dominating leagues as far away as the Indian Super League. It's no exaggeration to say Spain's way of thinking is actively running modern football.
Part 4. Teacher versus student. Which actually brings us perfectly to the ultimate subplot of the 2026 World Cup final. You see, this wasn't just Spain versus Argentina. This was a deep ideological showdown. As it turns out, Argentina's manager Lionel Scaloni earned his UEFA Pro license by studying through that exact same Spanish educational system. And sitting at the front of the classroom, his instructor was literally none other than Spain's manager Luis de la Fuente. It was quite literally the teacher facing off against his former student on the biggest stage imaginable. You literally cannot write a better script than that. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought to ponder. Yes, Spain's players won the final match, they executed a brilliant tactical evolution perfectly, and they lifted the trophy. But considering their educational system actually trained both managers on that touchline, and their tactical philosophies are directing the biggest clubs all over the world, didn't Spain already own the entire game before the referee even blew the starting whistle? It's a crazy thought. Let me know what you think.